Hello, everybody. I was trying to find some music to put on there, but I couldn't find it in time. I only just thought about it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another thrilling episode of the Digital Download. And today we're talking about AI slop taking over everybody's LinkedIn feeds, which I think is something that everybody can relate to as we see more and more of this stuff arriving in us when we tune in. Actually, not, I say LinkedIn, but it isn't just LinkedIn, is it? It's every social channel, every digital channel. We're seeing more and more AI created content, some of which is potentially just lazy, and some of which is absolutely designed to mislead and baffle the audience. But before we get into that, let's go around the screen and introduce ourselves. Helen.
Well, hello, and thank you for having me on. This is my inaugural digital download.
Oh, is it? It's your first one, is it?
I think I might have been on it way back when, but it might have been when it was in a different format, and it was certainly in a galaxy a long time ago. So lovely to be here. I'm somebody who thinks that procurement and sales are twins, and that there's a lot to be said for buying and selling, which manifested itself in an AI-generated image I put on LinkedIn this week of two big black-faced rams having a bit of a thing because sales and procurement were up against each other. So yeah, that's me.
Fantastic. Well, welcome. Tracy.
Welcome, Helen, and for the audience, please welcome Helen along today. It's her first time, and you might be seeing more of her.
Yeah, the first of many, we hope.
Yeah.
Tracy.
Good morning, everybody. I am Tracy Borison, founder of TLB Coaching and Events, a proud partner of DLA Ignite. And I love to come to this room and be the authenticity champion, which I think plays a lot of roles when it comes to AI slop. So let's see how that goes today.
Absolutely. Tim.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite, and I'm famous for writing the book Social Selling and Influence, Using Social Media for Cold Outreach and New Business Sales. The reason why I'm so dressed up, apart from the fact that it's Helen's first session on here today, is I've just come from speaking at a conference in London. And interestingly, this actually came up there was a panel about sales and marketing, and there was a debate about should you or shouldn't you in sales and marketing use AI.
A very opportune thing to be talking about today. Hey, I assume you are still wearing jeans, aren't you?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Because obviously we can only see the top bit. I'm
That's a bit creepy question.
See the bottom, Tim. No.
Yes. Okay. Let's moving swiftly on. I'm Adam Gray. I'm Tim's business partner and co-founder.
And he asks the creepy questions.
Well, everybody's got their little.
What kind of pants are you wearing, Adam?
So Tracy, just so you know that you do know that in America and North America and the UK that doesn't translate, don't you?
Yeah.
That's why both the gentlemen are looking a little bit peaky.
Yeah, it's got very hot in here.
Do you guys remember John? Do you guys know John Krasinski from the American version of The Office? During COVID, he had, I can't remember the name of the show, but he had a shirt and a jacket, and then just was wearing his boxer shorts. And it was part of the whole skit was that nobody wears pants anymore. So yeah, who knows when you can only see the top half?
Yeah, we're like a sort of a booed off act from the Comedy Store, really, aren't we? Not maybe as funny as we think. Anyway, welcome everybody, and welcome to everybody in the audience as well. So the slop epidemic. Why is the surge in AI a massive opportunity for those who are willing to be authentically human?
Because it makes your authenticity scalable. but only if you're using the authenticity to begin with.
Right. So why does that matter? Because I'm sure a lot of people watching the show will be thinking that content is just content. You know, I take my brochure and I post about my brochure, and then people read about it and they realise that this is the best product or service they should be buying.
I also had a conversation with somebody after my talk today about the fact that there's a lot of people that say, let's just put something out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, we need to be doing content, so let's just put something out there. And actually, their view was that actually that was doing more harm than actually good.
So
and I think there's a lot of people who aren't even really asking that question. Like, I had a conversation about this yesterday as well, about like, why do you do social media? And the answer was, we post every day. And I was like, that is not an answer to the question. Like, why do you do it? What is it supposed to do for you? Does it start conversations? Who does it start conversations with? And people are just like, we post every day. Okay, yep, good.
I mean, I wonder, Tracy, whether it's, you know, like I asked a question last week about inbound, and one of the things I think is around there, and I'd be interested in what people think, is this notion that the bulking up on content leads to inbound, and, you know, inbound feels like the easiest form of, I don't know, selling. You know, somebody's come to the site, they might even have filled a contact form in to say, hey, I'm really interested in what you do, tell me more. You know, that's the ideal scenario. And that SEO type approach relies on, you know, spinning up content. So I believe, I'm not an SEO expert, but I did speak to a founder of a procurement technology company once who did no sales outreach at all, because all of their revenue came from inbound. So I wonder whether this, you know, we just need to put something out there, we need to post every day, and then using AI to bulk up on content and to keep redoing it in different ways goes back to this sort of, the best way to make sales is to be top of the Google page and for people to discover you that way.
It makes sense. But Tim, so you said that somebody came up to you after the talk and said that that they thought that just putting stuff out there was doing more harm than good. So, I mean, that's a view that we all kind of obviously subscribe to, really. But
do we?
Well, I certainly,
because the Tracy's customer clearly doesn't.
Yes.
Well, I think Adam meant everybody here on the
panel. Yeah. So how had they arrived at that conclusion that it was doing more harm than good, do you think?
Well, it's interesting because they actually said it was common sense, which, as you know, isn't sense. Which is, they said, you know, when you look out over LinkedIn, there's rubbish content. And so, but I think that I was on a call with LinkedIn yesterday, and there was a discussion about this, and you know, LinkedIn are doing whatever they can to try and stop rubbish content, and they've even changed the algorithm now that if it suspects it's written by AI, it will basically detune it.
So how does it determine what's rubbish content? Because
I can tell you.
Do.
So it makes a judgment. So this is what LinkedIn told us yesterday. This is straight from LinkedIn. So the algorithm reads the post, and it reads and it makes a decision. And I guess that's on a, you know, some sort of 0 to 10 on how authentic it is. The more authentic it is, the more it promotes it. The more
it's looking for authenticity.
Yeah, the more it pushes it down. And one of the things that it one of the things that it looks at is, so they recommended don't use AI generated images, because the assumption is it's an AI generated post.
Yeah.
The other thing is that they they're dead against the brewery thing. So even though actually it's easier to read 2 lines, 2 lines, 2 lines, 2 lines, 2 lines, actually they say that they detune that. They detune use of emojis. So there was like about 2 years ago, maybe, you had to sort of like, every line had an emoji. That's now all detuned. So now what they're looking for is a some sort of hook at the ideal post has a hook at the top, and this is what the algorithm looks like.
Yeah.
And then blocks of text. Now they say that's easier to read. I don't generally read blocks of text, but it's the only way that they can basically say whether the post is good or authentic. They also, these apps that you can basically get and use bold text or italics.
Yeah.
That's detuned because it's deemed as what you're trying to do is it's growth hacking, and you're trying to do something with the algorithm. So, and that was I think that was all the advice that that was the advice that they gave. So they are looking for authentic content, and they are trying to do all the slop.
I need to say something about this as the authenticity champion in the room, because this is also making a gigantic assumption that every single human's authentic expression is identical, which is ridiculous.
No, but I don't think it is. No, I'm
not actually doing that.
I tend to agree with you, Tracy, but they have to start from somewhere, don't they? And an algorithm is just a mathematical. So they have to come up with some sort of, what's the definition of good content? We probably.
I just mean you could be writing good content, and you could be writing 100% authentically and love using emojis, and the algorithm will still.
But usually what happens is that anything they do with the algorithm, they tend to be like 6 months behind, which is what happens is that there will be somebody will say, if you use emojis, then the algorithm will basically push it up. So everybody uses emojis. And so what they do is then they're in that situation where not all good content is the same, but all content is the same. So what happens is that they have to still make a decision about what is good content or not, and everybody's using emojis. So they just detune it.
Right, which means if I would naturally use emojis, and I hear that information now, then I would stop using emojis, even though I would use emojis. Like, I actually use emojis in my emails to clients and everything because I use emojis. And so if now what we're saying is our behavior on the platform is dictated by the algorithm, then that's not authentic.
No, and we can. The thing is about if you're thinking about content from how many likes and how many comments I'm going to get, I don't think that it's not really you're not being authentic. You can write. I know within the team, people have written content because they wanted one person to read it, and they wanted that one person to pick up the phone and say, "I've read your article. That's really interesting. Can you come and talk to us?" And therefore, if you're thinking about content, it should actually be getting a reaction, a conversation or something, or rather than likes and comments. But I'm just sharing with the world and with you what LinkedIn told me yesterday.
I believe it's true.
That's just like going back to the way LinkedIn was 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, people didn't use these apps to embolden text and italicize text. 10 years ago, people didn't have AI written text. They didn't have AI created images. They didn't use loads of emojis, and they didn't write embroidery. They wrote proper, old-fashioned, value-added content. And I suspect that that's what LinkedIn are trying to get back to, because if you click on a post that says the answer to your sales success is this ... and then you have to scroll down half a dozen lines and click the more bit in order to see what comes next. The problem with that is that when it doesn't deliver that to you, you're going to be disappointed. And from LinkedIn's perspective, what they want is you to stay on the platform. They don't want you to log in, read one of those posts and go, what a waste of time, read another one and go, what a waste of time, read another one, and then leave the platform for a week. They want you there. And I guess that the way that they will have that desire fulfilled is A, through you learning stuff and finding valuable posts, and B, you being entertained and finding entertaining posts. So, you know, here's Tim on a skateboard, first time in 45 years, and everyone goes, "Oh, that's fantastic! Look at him; he can still do it."
The next one is here's Tim in accident and emergency.
No, but joking aside, you know, people look at that and they go, "Okay, it shows that he's human. It shows that he's just like me because I used to ride a skateboard when I was younger, and it shows that he's still young at heart." And actually, all of that puts a smile on somebody's face, which is a value add for the person that reads it.
Do you think one of the things that they could do then is ban company pages? Because you know, one of the things that come across people's feeds is the sort of brochureware, as you would call it. I mean, I'm a little bit disappointed. I like to write. I didn't realise it was called broetry. Could it be girletry or poetry if I write it? But yeah. I've always written. I love poetry. That's one of the things I love, and I like to write my posts with a cadence to it because I think it is the closest I can get in how I write to how I speak. So if you're, you know, repeating, you know, more sales, more suppliers, more whatever, that is poetry. I didn't realise it was broetry, but if what I'm interested in is, I think the company pages don't help, because when you're thinking about keeping people on the platform and, you know, your mate has or somebody has messaged you and asked you to follow a company page and you do, or LinkedIn just promotes it because presumably it's monetizing it, then you're scrolling through all this brochureware trying to get to something that's authentic. And actually people trying to put content out there, whether they need to handwriting it because they're not writers, but they want to express ideas and they want to use tools that we've got now to help them put that into the written word. I think that's a little bit sad, really, isn't it? It moves us away from authenticity, because then we've now got to go back to an inauthentic style of writing if that's not how we write.
So I've just been sitting on the train going into London and coming back again on my mobile, going through LinkedIn, and it's very easy with the company pages, because what you do is at the top right hand corner there's a 3 dots, and you go like that and it says "Hi Dad," and you go "Hi Dad." Next ad that comes up, "Hi Dad." It does mean it is a slightly I don't go quite so through the feed, but I hope that LinkedIn, because I sit there and I've hidden like 50 ads, maybe they'll stop. They'll go, "I won't show this person ads anymore." Clearly they don't like them.
But then how would they sell ads, Tim?
Sorry?
How would they sell ads then?
Well, not everybody's, you know, like just people that go on LinkedIn that aren't us, you know, just want to have a look and see what's doing, as we say up here. And so hiding ads isn't something that.
So Helen, can I introduce you to Andrew Slessor? Do you know Andrew?
Not personally, no.
Okay, so Andrew is from your part of the world, but he's on the east, not the west.
I'm not seeing any comments in.
Oh, is that why? Yeah, it needed to refresh. I got an error message earlier on which saying you need to refresh, and I just shut the chat down and brought it back up.
Yeah, I've just done that, and it still hasn't shown them to me. So
okay, so Andrew Slessor, he's in Aberdeen, Helen.
All right, okay.
Andrew, Helen is in Isle of Lewis. And for those who don't know Scotland, go and have a look where the Isle of Lewis is.
And the other thing with Andrew
right
is
at the top on the cliff edge of the top of the mountain.
The edge of the world.
Yeah. So Andrew Slessor says, if LinkedIn are looking to stop AI content, yet they use AI to stop it, is that not the pot calling the kettle black?
Yes.
Robert Turl says, I am not sure what LinkedIn was, Adam, other than monetizing. Andrew Slessor says, Tim, stick to Quidditch, which is that's 100% true. Chris Early says, like the term brochureware, and Chris Early says, all my ads say, can I retire at 57, etc.
Yes.
That's like targeted on your demographics.
So we're seeing loads of this AI slop. But AI is getting better. So how do we tell what is authentic stuff and what is AI generated stuff? before we've invested a huge amount of time in reading it all?
I mean, I think there's a human feeling, right? I went on a rampage a while back about AI comments because I was like, why are people doing this? It's so obvious that it's AI and that you don't actually care about what I've written. And then that's annoying to me. So like, don't bother. You can tell it just doesn't sound like if you read it, if you were reading it out loud and it just doesn't sound like a human said that. It sounds like the amalgamation of people said that, which is what AI is, the amalgamation of people. It's the same experience that I used to have when I would like observe sales teams making a script, right? And they would make this one script and it was nothing that any of them would actually say, but it was like a mashup of all the things they might kind of say. And then everyone was supposed to say it. And you're like, yeah, but no one would actually say this though, right? Like, everyone stumbles over.
It's like the saying, a camel is a horse, but designed by committee.
Poor camel.
No camels were hurt during the filming of this.
And the thing that's interesting too, which is something that we haven't as like consumers of content been exposed to until now, is our guard is up against AI. Right. So everyone's out there talking about AI slop and people are seeing the images that have 7 fingers. And you're like, this is not for real. My 8-year-old already is like, this is made by AI. Right. Like our guard is up against it. So it's something that we're actually proactively looking for, where historically we weren't proactively looking for that. So what might also happen in that scenario is that something that was created by a human, but that follows the broetry format or uses lots of emojis or anything like that, people will start putting it into the category of AI slop, even if it was created by a human. And so then our experience of the whole thing is that there's all this AI slop. And what we're not realizing is that all of that definition happens within our own discernment. As an individual human, we're deciding what is AI slop and what is something I want to read. Because I think it was Tove last week who mentioned that like she reads stuff, and just because AI helped somebody to like structure it doesn't mean that it's bad thoughts, which I think is a really great point, right? So I think it's interesting even to look at if we're saying there's too much AI slop, and then AI and all of our human experiences like, okay, let's put up our filter for AI slop. And now this filter is not one of those like big air filters where most of the things can get through, but it's like one of those super allergy filters where nothing can get through. Like this has an impact. And then if people's perception of that is, well, nothing's getting through the filter, I have to send more stuff, then we just propagate the issue instead of dealing with the actual problem, which is our new filter.
But isn't it so? Before AI became so prevalent, LinkedIn was largely. I mean, you can segment the content in any number of ways, but a way of segmenting the content is content that's worth reading and content that isn't. The content that was worth reading was content that was valuable or entertaining and came from people who shared valuable and entertaining content. Then there were a whole host of people that when they did share content, the content wasn't particularly good. It was pitching, or it was brochureware, or it was wrong, or it had a viewpoint that I didn't agree with. So now people are using AI to create content, and ultimately that content is, so your content, Tracy, you might write it yourself, or you might have help from AI in writing that content, but it's still high quality content from you, as it's always been high quality content from you. But part of the problem is the people that can't write or shouldn't write have now started writing potentially. And seeing as they're quite happy to press publish on a piece of brochureware, quite happy to press publish on something that wasn't very good that they'd written, and they're going to be equally happy to press publish on something that was written by AI that isn't very good. And that's potentially why we're seeing so much of this slop now. It's not that it's just that there are more people that weren't publishing are now publishing.
Is that because we're back to the? Is that because we're back to the situation that actually people don't feel confident about publishing content?
Undoubtedly.
And I know that we shout authenticity from the rooftops, but actually that scares the shit out of people. And so we all know that if we post a brochure and you say, well, that's rubbish, you go, well, yeah, it's only coming out of work out. Whereas if I share a picture of my dog and you say that it's a really ugly dog, I'm offended. And that's it's just easy just to press the button and say, yeah, it was a crap blog. It was AI wrote it.
But do you think though, Tim, on that, LinkedIn's a little bit different? So I'll give you. I think people are worried of saying the wrong thing because enragement is engagement on lots of other platforms. And I'll give you an example. Right, I thought I was being very clever on Blue Sky the other day, which is where, if you go there, I'm posting mostly about my beloved football club that I support. But somebody wrote a really great email piece or blog piece about 3 months ago about the team, which was basically saying there's no corners being turned this season. That, you know, so I wrote a little post which was a comment which was, you turn if you want to, there's no corners being turned by the team. As I was trying to be clever, I was trying to use quite a famous saying in British culture, you turn if you want to, this lady's not for turning is the thing. And I got slagged off by somebody for being a bit Tory. Oh, that's a bit Tory. And I was being authentic. I was trying to create something interesting, which was about the team not turning a corner, and I got slagged off. Now, on LinkedIn, I don't think people are like that. I don't think people are going to say you've got a horrible dog. Now, some people do. Some of the posts can get quite tetchy, but they tend to be the more, I would suggest, the more either social issue or political issue posts. But generally speaking, if Tim puts up a picture of him on a bicycle and we think he looks a bit silly on that bicycle, he hasn't got his bicycle clips on, or perish the thought he hasn't got a cycle helmet on, we're not going to post on his thing, well, that's a great post, Tim, but shame you haven't got a bike helmet on. But on the other social media platforms, people might. And so I think people feel a little bit, you know, when they're being authentic, they feel a bit concerned that they're going to get what we would say up here, slagged off. I think the other thing I think people should do is speak in their voice. So, you know, rather than saying, I'm just going to circle back to the issue that I spoke about in my last post, which I would never do because, you know, the only time we ever circle up here, I think, is if we're doing, you know, we're doing a spinny thing on the dance floor or something like that. We certainly don't have a wagon that we're going to circle back, but your good selves over in North America might. But I think people also feel like they've got to speak in some sort of written formal language rather than just speaking how they speak. So, you know, I try always to post how I would say, even if it's a bit colloquial. And back to your pants, Tracy, if you said pants, we think you meant trousers, but we might think you meant underpants, and just put it out there. So a couple of points there, but I do think this thing about being worried that somebody's going to slag your dog off or your post off, that doesn't particularly happen if it's not about politics and social issues on LinkedIn. I think people are they just scroll past.
So Marcus Kane basically says, I see a lot of perfectly curated designed posters artwork. I think now I'll print that out, but then I ask, is that actually valuable to me? And it nearly always isn't. Even folk I know do this, and I'm not sure what to think of it. Just so you know, maybe it's been known a long time, but Canva and LinkedIn are connected, and they were pitching that to us. So if you want to create those funny things that look like PowerPoints, you can do that. And Robert Tell says, the question is what will give enough value to a CEO that will engage? If not careful, I can see all of the C-suites disengaging as too much of a distraction and not enough value.
I think that's really true, because one of the questions that we kind of batted around was, so AI is here to stay. Everybody's going to be using AI in one form or another, whether that's writing your posts, or in a more advanced way, writing the posts in your own voice and style, or whether or not that's structuring the posts for you to write and helping you to marshal your thoughts or doing research. It's here to stay. So one of the questions was, if AI allows us to post 10 times a day, should we? Is frequency the enemy of quality? And I think ultimately, the challenge that people have is that when you take the bung out of the bottle, there's this huge flood of content which is going to be coming towards you. So previously, I certainly on LinkedIn have spent a long time curating my newsfeed. So like Tim, cancelling ads and saying that he doesn't want to see them. I've been doing that with people's posts. If you're constantly posting about something that isn't of interest to me, I don't want to disconnect from you, because I might want to start to see your posts again if you take on a new role or my position on stuff changes. But I've found it very valuable to go through and systematically, if I'm getting repeated posts that are not of value to me, to unfollow that stuff so it doesn't show up in my newsfeed. Now, part of the problem is that if all of a sudden, if you're connected to 5,000 people, and I guess that huge numbers of people on LinkedIn are connected to 5,000 people, that's 5,000 people each posting once or twice a day content which is of zero value to you. So absolutely, I think Rob's right that the CEO or anybody that's got quite a time-sensitive role within a business is going to just be swamped by this stuff, aren't they?
May I read out PP Tool's comment? To create and publish content, you need a story and the confidence to share it. I simply watch each of your streams right now and realize that the four of you are storytellers, and you have a lot I would find interesting and instructive to learn from. That's why you don't need artificial intelligence at all to create your communication pieces. This is one of the reasons why live streaming is 100% AI-free form of communication.
What a brilliant comment. The best comment we've had for a little while. And absolutely hit the nail on the head. And that's one of the reasons that we do live streams, isn't it? Because people get to see who we are and how we react to the comments that they place in the chat. And I guess that as AI gets better and people's use of it gets better, it's more difficult to tell what's been written by you and what's been written by your bot. But this idea of and I guess that coming back to the way that marketing used to be, like you said, Tracy, with publishing loads of stuff, is that marketing has always been, whether that's the marketing department or marketing in an organization in general, marketing has always been, results have been a function of how much activity you've done. So you place an ad and it gets seen by 1,000 people. You place 10 ads, you get seen by 10,000 people. You place 1 million ads, you get seen by 10 million people. It's like it's a fairly linear thing, always used to be. So you send out, you make a call to somebody and no one answers. You make 100 calls, 5 people answer. You make 1,000 calls, 50 people answer. It's fairly linear, and I guess that bleeds through to what you do on social, doesn't it? If you're old school, if I post once a week, it gets seen by 1,000 people. If I post 10 times a day, it gets seen by 100,000 people. And it's this scaling that still drives people's behavior in a lot of instances, without realizing that sometimes it isn't about getting more, it's about getting right, and that people's behavior has changed. But also, and this is the challenge with AI as a tool, if we're not prudent with how we use it, surely we'll get to the same situation that we got with email, which is if you send 10 times as many emails, you don't get 10 times the response. And the reason you don't is that everybody's sending 10 times as many emails. So you get the same number of responses, but you have to do 10 times the work to get it.
Right. And all of this is based on the assumption that we operate within a closed system. So that here's my closed system. It's the boxes of my organization, and I control all the people inside of it, and they control their clients, right? And we control all of these things. And one of the things that AI has, it has opened our eyes more, I think, to this idea that we don't have a closed system. We're not actually operating within a closed system. So all of those numbers that I thought were just scalable ended at where the actual closed system ended, which is a very small box, right? So now we're operating outside of that box. We are dealing with, like, kind of to come back to Helen's comment too about the inbound, is that inbound used to work that way. It used to work that way in a world where there wasn't that much content. Except now we have a different problem. We have a problem where there's too much content. And so again, people create new behavior. They turn on their filter. Well, they didn't have their filter on before. So now I'm not operating in that same closed system anymore. I have a new complexity that's been added to the system from humans. And humans, my friend Mark Stoops made a really great post today about how AI is fed by humans. All of the data that goes into AI was documented by humans. It was documented by humans so that AI can learn off of it. And yes, it can find patterns and it can do some really great things within that. And until a human says we're not operating in that system anymore, AI will believe that we're operating in that system. And it will say, you can, yes, just send more posts, then I will enable that for you. And I'm being super helpful, right? Until a human is like, except like what Tim said at the conference, right? Like, that's not actually helping. And then AI would be like, wait, what? All my patterns say that it's helping. Like, all of your patterns are data that we're operating to the edge of the closed system, except now we're beyond the edge of that closed system. So now what? And then it's like, oh, keep doing the same things.
Yeah, absolutely. The people's bandwidth is saturated, isn't it? And giving you more stuff to read doesn't solve the problem. So with this in mind, with the fact that people are increasingly becoming saturated, does that make the human bit more important?
I think it makes the human bit more impactful. So like, just like that comment was relating to, right? Like we could, all of us could have used AI to write 10 posts, and it would have cost us less time than spending an hour together in conversation. Yeah, it would have. That's a fact. And would it have had the same impact on the humans consuming it than this did? So you could do that 10 posts a day activity every day and it not have the same impact as someone coming and listening to you speak and hearing your knowledge, experiencing your expertise, feeling your authenticity, right? Like, this happens when humans are in conversation. And if you're generating a bunch of content that doesn't get people into conversation, then like, what's the point?
And also it's about stickiness as well. I think there's something around having seen people in a scenario like this, or having actually had a conversation with them, which may well have come from a post that you did, that when you reached out, somebody reached out to connect with you after it, and then you got on a call and just had a chat with them, that actually that makes everything a lot more sticky. And then I think that's authenticity. But back to Robert's point in the chat about enough value for the CEO, well, presumably the CEO's there to grow the business and to make connections. And when I think about buying and selling, which is where I'm sitting in my head quite a lot, about how do people buy things, where do they find suppliers, and then how do people sell things to the buyers, then actually that stickiness and that human connection's quite interesting, I think, along that. So you're quite right. Either seeing it in a recorded form or seeing it live, or perish the thought, people actually talking to each other live in conversations is where it sort of becomes authentic. But it's trying to scale.
But I think there's like unscriptedness that happens. Like, for those of you who watch this show, we might have a handful of questions in our repository if we want to keep the conversation going, but you guys usually have all the comments.
It's more of a suppository, I think, Tracy.
Man, I'm not sure where this episode is going. But like, there's audience participation that we don't control. There's comments and questions that we don't control. There's the fact that Tim was at a conference today and this came up and that wasn't planned, right? Like, there's a lot of uncertainty that we allow to permeate this space. And when we're looking at, a lot of people, when I talk to about their like growth strategies or marketing strategies, they are afraid of the uncertainty. So instead of building to welcome the uncertainty, which is just it's part of the human experience, and trying to filter it out is impossible because it's available with humans. We get caught up in this certainty factor. How do we create certainty? How do we create certainty in the funnel? How do we make sure that like people aren't offended by this post? And in so doing, we filter out structures and systems that actually work better. So I'm gonna, off the top of my head, I'm gonna forget, and I'll share it by the end because I'll look it up on my phone. But I started listening to an audiobook yesterday, and they were comparing traffic lights to roundabouts, traffic circles. And in the United States, so the guy who wrote, it's an American author, said, I think it's between 75 or 79% of intersections are traffic lights. So the data would say traffic lights is a better way to do a traffic intersection if you just looked at the volume data. And then what he looked at on the traffic circle side was that it costs half the amount of money to put in a traffic circle. It decreases the amount of accidents substantially. And it increases traffic flow substantially. So all of the purpose of an intersection is much better processed by a traffic circle than a traffic light. So why do we mostly choose traffic lights? What is up with this? And because a traffic light system is based on not having confidence that the people can make their own good decisions. So we put the structures in place so they don't have to make decisions. We control all the decisions that they make, and therefore we assume that that is safer, even though it's not safer and it costs more money and all of these things. And the traffic circle, you have to depend on people to make a good judgment call about when is it safe to enter the circle, right? When is it safe to exit the circle? When do you just keep going around because you're like, oops, I missed. This is what happens to me. Oops, I missed that one. I'll just go around and go back to it. There's different assumptions that are underlying both. One of them is based on control, and one of them is based on confidence. And so it's really interesting when we look at that example, we look at our behavior with AI, and we look at the underlying operating system, and are we saying that we trust people to create content, which I would say if you look at most corporate social media policies, is a no. We don't trust people to create content. We trust these brand guidelines as a prison that I will come back to again, to keep us safe, and we control them. And in so doing, we make everything smaller. And then if AI is added into that, it compounds what's happening there. So now we're we need to control. So we're going to use AI to control the people and control the content. We're going to have X amount of posts and they're going to do this. It's we get so caught up in these assumptions. But if we don't look at the assumptions as part of the conversation, it could be very easy to say, yep, let's just make 10 AI posts because we can do that. Let's do that. That seems easy and faster, and not ask the question about how does that hinder or help us in the long run. I kind of went on a tangent there, sorry.
No, I think that's really good. But I think that there's another thing, isn't there? So we have our administrative office in a place called Hemel Hempstead. And in Hemel Hempstead, there used to be a magic roundabout. So it was a roundabout or a traffic circle where 7 roads all converge on this. And what they decided to do, because it was an accident black spot, so what they decided to do was to make it a 2-way roundabout. So rather than coming up to it, so for you, Tracy, you come in, you enter the roundabout, you go round to the right and you drive anti-clockwise around it. You used to be able to come to the roundabout and go both ways around the roundabout. And the reason that they did that, and it clearly in the UK where there are far more roundabouts than there are traffic signals, people are more used to doing them. But the reason they did that apparently was because the plan was nobody would actually know what they were supposed to do, so everybody would drive really cautiously. And I think we've got a little bit of this going on in terms of corporate control, haven't we? if you empower people to do stuff, like you said, they might go off and do something wrong. But given that AI is here to stay, and that people are going to use it, as demonstrated by the fact that people are using it, even though they're tending to use it very badly, what should they be doing to try to use it better? Because they're not going to stop using it. Like, they're not going to stop sending emails, and they're not going to stop phoning people. So what can they do to make their use of AI better than it currently is? Because at the moment, it is largely producing slop.
I mean, I would just say to look at the results. Like, is it contributing to what you're hoping that it will? So even if you're operating in that closed system still, and your belief is that for every post we make, we get a lead, right? So if I just do more posts, then I will get more leads. Okay, good. That's a hypothesis, right? Test it, right? Test it. Do that for 30 days. See what it does for you. If it does nothing, then your hypothesis is wrong. And I think this is where I think we've gotten, and I will just say, like, marketing teams in general, right, have gotten comfortable. Is that, like, I just do the things, and I'm being measured on whether or not I do the things. So I do the things, and now I look great because I'm doing even more of the things. And then the CFO is like, but what revenue does this drive? And the marketing team's like, no, that's not what we're measured on. Like, we're measured on, like, how many posts we do.
But that's outside of our pay grade. At the end of the day, you're unilaterally posting things, and you're, whether or not the activities that you're being paid to do, you can't change that, because that's what you're being paid to do. So you're unilaterally posting things, and you're going to use AI to do it. How should you use AI? So what's the first step if you're going to be using AI in a meaningful way, rather than just opening up ChatGPT and saying, write me a blog that people are going to like, or whatever it is that you put in there? Because I cannot help, I'm convinced that that's what most people do. They enter their AI, whatever it is, loads of brands available. They type into DeepSeek or whatever it is, write me a 500-word blog that I can post on LinkedIn about something to do with business that in this area. They press it, and then they don't even read it. They just cut and paste it in and go, that'll do. And I'll do an AI image to go with it as well.
It's that Richard's point in the chat, isn't it? The risk is when AI starts doing the thinking for us. So I think the thing about it is really thinking through how you're going to use it and how it's going to augment what you can do. So you may ask it to spin me up a 500-word blog on whatever, and then you might, back to my point about circling back, you might read it through and say, do you know what, I just wouldn't say it like that. So you might edit it, but at least it's given you something other than a blank sheet to go on. I think there is
the blank sheet conundrum.
Pardon? Black sheep.
The blank sheep, not the black sheep.
Yeah. I just think that there's something around that. I mean, obviously, there's something about, the luxury of having one that's trained, that knows how you speak. I mean, I was, when in my last role, I was, in sales, you have transcripts of calls, so it gets the hang of how you speak, because it's got lots of transcripts of your spoken words. So then it can be a bit more authentic in your voice. But I think that would be, I think that the thing about it is it's not binaries. It's not either oh my goodness, we can't use it at all because it's going to make us sound authentic, to how can we use it? And one of the things this week that I think is in the report that I think Tim was talking about on his Tim Talk this week was about quality versus quantity. And I think that's the interesting thing for AI is, can we use it to improve the quality of what we do rather than the quantity of what we do? Because we know from email spammage that it's very easy to use AI to increase the quantity of email that we can send and that we can follow up. So that would be, I think, the way to do it. And I'm really excited, I think, about the AI teammate that DLA have got in the works, because having that assistance that's going to back to Tracy, understand the guardrails of the CEO, plus really know how I speak and who I am, and the fact that if we don't get sheep in to at least one post every other day, then it's not authentic, it's not me, then I think that's where it becomes really interesting, is how can we build AI that's going to be great assistance to that.
I think so. What I'd like to say here is, first of all, let's be clear, at least in this space, what our assumptions are, right? So our assumptions are that it's your job to post more content. Okay, you're being measured on that, right? So your performance is being based on the volume of things that you are producing, and that you have a role in the organization where you are not, someone hasn't given you like free reign to say what you would say, right? These are the working conditions for most marketing coordinators, right? My job is just to post social content, right? I think there is a limitation to that operating system, that person doesn't have thoughts, right? They don't have their own unique thoughts that we want the world to see. We want them to see business thoughts, right? So that's all they're responsible for publishing. In that scenario, and if you are a marketing coordinator right now and that's what you feel like you have these handcuffs, but I'm responsible for making content and I want to use AI to make like good content. I don't want to get fired for the content that I write, right? So I want to do at least what the company is defined as good. I think one of the things that you can do to prevent what we're considering AI slop as part of this exercise, assuming that you're using AI to some degree to help you create this content, is to look at it and ask yourself, would I want to read this? And if I read this, what might I do?
Absolutely.
Maybe that's above your pay grade too, but I
think I don't think it is, but I think you have to wind back before that, don't you? Because you have to create something that can emulate who you are and what you are. Because if you go to ChatGPT and you say to it, again, other brands available, you go to ChatGPT and you say, write me a 500-word blog about the impact of AI on content in LinkedIn, it'll write you something which you'll read and say, that doesn't sound like me and it doesn't make the points I would like to make. But you can't expect it to, any more than, it's coming up to that time of year when interns are going to be going into the marketplace. So an intern comes in and you say, I want you to rebuild our website for us. And they come back with a draft of something and you go, well, that's not very good, is it? And the intern goes, well, no, because I'm only 18. I've no idea what I'm supposed to do. And it's the same with your AI instance. At the end of the day, I always think that a really good starting point is you type into your AI, tell me everything you know about me and what I do. And it will come back and it will say, I don't know anything about you or what you do. Okay, well, then it's not a good person to be pretending to be you. Now, I know this is a little bit more complicated than that, but at the end of the day, you have to teach it. You have to say, as Helen said, here's a massive amount of content about how I speak, whether that's written or speaking. Here's some information about my industry. Here's some information about my product. Here's all of those different things that help you structure your intelligent output. You have to give the AI, and you have to give it to it in a way that the AI can understand and interpret that, so that it can do a reasonable job of speaking on your behalf. Because that's what you want. Ultimately, you want what the AI produces to be indistinguishable from what you produce. Because that's how you free up time. That's how you create good content effectively, isn't it?
Right. And I think that is a ongoing, just like if you are training a new person, right? And this is interesting with interns, because usually they're only there for the summer and then they leave, and then you're like, well, that good thing we did nothing with that person for the summer. But like, this is an opportunity for us to like continually invest in training something, right? So we get an opportunity, and I love always what like Bertrand says, and I don't do it nearly as well as he does, is correct the AI. Right? So like, if you gave me this and I make a bunch of changes, I give that back to you so you can understand what I would do with what you gave me, and you can start to build patterns based on that. That's our opportunity to invest in our, if we want to use the word co-pilot, right? Like our collaborator in content creation, right? If we're going to work together, we got to give and take as well. I'm not just putting in a prompt and then taking exactly what you give. I'm giving something back. And I think that's the, people use the phrase human in the loop, but that's the value exchange between humans and AI, is that what AI has, everything AI has, was created by a human. And so we can say, I'm going to just not include what I would teach it. I'm just going to include whatever's in the large language model, which is what every other human gave it in terms of content. If I look at it that way, I can know pretty clearly that's not going to reflect me. But now I have the power to take everything else every other human thought and wrote and like influence my perspective into that, so that we get new opportunities for people to learn information. There's no new information really, right? Like the information just cycles around and someone says it in a different way, and suddenly someone else is like, oh, I get that. That's our opportunity. I think that's our responsibility with AI, that allows us to actually create meaningful, valuable content with it instead of the AI slop. And fun fact, I was having a conversation with a friend yesterday whose current job, so he's a marketer, current job is to make sure that no AI slop goes out from this business. So like there's people just generating AI slop, and he's now like the
AI slop officer.
Yeah, no, I mean, there we are. There's an example of AI creating jobs rather than removing jobs.
Right.
But so we are
on that bombshell.
On that bombshell, and that's a brilliant way to sum up, Tracy. So thank you all on the panel, and I get the feeling that this is something that we will be revisiting again and again because it's such a hot topic for everybody. So if you in the audience would like to come on as a guest, please. There we are. I got it right first time. Please do scan the QR code and come on as a guest. We would love to hear your perspective on all of these things. And hopefully we'll see you next week. Until then, thank you all very much indeed for joining. Thank you all for the comments. As I said earlier, I can't see the comments, so I can't thank you individually, but thank each and every one of you. And until next time, we'll see you all again soon. And have a great weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.
Cheerio.